Aloha mai kākou. Just mahalo for being here today to support First Nations Futures, us. Our Papa Lāhiki Kū. Our name comes from Napule Kahiko, the book of ancient prayers, and it is the first prayer in the book. It talks about how our ali'i, the generations of the ali'i, and their velau, the clusters that came after them, and the puali'i that live here today. Eia mai ke kai mai. We came from the sea. Today, Papa Lāhiki Kū is here to present to you all the beauty that we have seen throughout our pai aina. And we just like to take a moment in time just to acknowledge all of those of you who are here, and to keep those in our hearts who are not here with most deepest warmth and thanksgiving for the love that you shared with us. So we'd like to just begin to just acknowledge our Chief of Staff, Walter Thamus, who is here, or there you are. Kalamai, welcome, mahalo, mahalo. We know that that DJ is in New York, so we pray that she is on a safe journey there. But mahalo for coming today. We'd also like to acknowledge our past fellows who have been here for us since the beginning, just setting us up for what we need to prepare ourselves for, but just to remember our Hawaiian values and just nalu, just go with the flow, and know that everything is going to be how it's supposed to be, how Akua is meant it to be, Ikia Manava, this moment in time. We'd especially like to thank our community members who we visited on our journey throughout our pai aina of Hawaii. And as you can see behind you, the posters, those are all of the places that we visited. All of those people gave us their ike, their mana'o, but most of all, their mana and their aloha for their wahipana that we now carry inside our na'au to move forward in the future. We'd also like to thank those who are viewing on Polycom and the World Wide Web. Aloha, mai kako. That's a really cool thing to have technology just span gaps and just bring people closer together. I was just gently reminded to ask you just to mute your mics on your end so you can hear our conversation, but we can't hear yours. Kalamai. Yes. And for all our invited guests and ohana who are here, we just want to thank you for your love and support. Because without you, we would not be here today. Most of all, we'd like to mahalo our ABED staff, Brendan Ledward, our BJ Alva, who is our haku, of course Neil Hannes, Rondi, Mitzi, Mahea, and the whole ABED staff. Oh, and Chin, Kalamai Chin, we cannot forget Chin. And also our special guests who have been here from Stanford, who have helped us and have supported us throughout our initial journey. So we want to say mahalo. We're just going to start off with some individual introductions just to let you know who we are. We are Papa Lāhiki Kū. Eia mai ke kai mai. O au Malia Ellis. I am Malia Ellis. I am a Kamehameha preschool teacher in the wahipana of my manalo, and I live in Makisi. Aloha.
Aloha mai kako. Oho Keahi Warfield, no Keukaha. I am a high school teacher at Kal Management Public Charter School. I'm also the director of a 21st Century After School program entitled RISE, Revealing Individual Strengths for Excellence in our Keukaha community. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Kimia Piki. I am from Kaipapa'u in Ko'olauloa, and I'm the administrator at Alulike for our Maritime Stewardship Program. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Keopu Rivitz. I'm from Kaneohe, and I am the interim editor for Mana Magazine.
Aloha kako, Thomas, Sanuhea Li'i. I'm from Nanakuli. I am the Palihua Ranger and represent the Friends of Honouli'uli.
Aloha,
my name is Holly Coleman. I'm from Mo'ili'ili, and I'm an Office of Hawaiian Affairs Research Analyst.
Hello, Mike Kako. My name is Scott Abrigo. I'm a planner with PBR Hawaii. I also manage PBR's Kapolei office, and I live in Kapolei. Hello.
Hello, everybody. My name is Umi Jensen. I'm from Hau'ula, Oahu, and I'm currently a program coordinator at one of our community nonprofits. Aloha.
Ona kuma kua pau, I hana i ka pō I ka Lāhiki Kū. Ea mai ke kai mai. Ona kuma alike a pau, I hana i ka pō I ka Lāhiki Kū. Ea mai ke kai mai. Ona la alike a pau, I hana i ka pō I ka Lāhiki Kū. Ea mai ke kai mai. Ona belau alike a pau, I hana i ka pō I ka Lāhiki Kū. Ea mai ke kai mai. Ona kua alike a pau, e ku. E ku. E ola. E ola. A kau. A kau. A kari ko'o, I pana lau pala, au maka I ole ko le pūpū. Aloha.
As we was going through a few of the images, it's just a way to kind of open up our presentation today, kind of set the focus. So my job here now is to kind of give you the history of the natural world of the Hawaiian. And what we're really here today is to talk about relationships, Pilina. How many of you guys eat fish and poi? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Okay. How many of you guys ate fish at one point, but you never had poi? And then sometimes the other way around, right? You eat the poi and then you wish you had the fish. So, how does that make you feel when you don't have one or the other? It kind of makes you feel out of balance. Yeah. And the poi, you need water to mix that poi. Okay? So if you think fish, poi, and water, where do they come from? Okay. So we were tasked with the job to look into kai. And what we found out was amazing. It was an awesome experience. But more importantly, when you go without the kai, without the aina, without what falls down from the sky, when you're without one of those pieces, those elements, you're going to be out of sync. So part of well-being is having a little bit of all of that. And remembering that that's what helps well balance. And so I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about my childhood growing up in Keaukaha, on the coastline of Puhi, Kulapai, Keonekahakaha, Kamakuna, went all the way down to Waiuli, and fishing with my dad. Just kind of following him along. He sells nets, and from as small as I can remember, that was my task, was just to go along, and he's over there and I'm way in the back sitting down, and at the time wasn't too interesting, but as the years went on and I grew up, then I realized what that was for, and part of those practices is what I do today. But that knowledge of passing that on to the next generation is something that is very important to us as Native Hawaiians. Understanding the relationship that the kai has with the aina, and what the kai and the aina has to everything that is in the lani is also important. And in those things, when you balanced and That's where you find kia kua. It's in those elements. And so a lot of what you can hear today in our presentation has to do with relationships, has to do with what we're doing now, but specifically towards what we're doing with our kai. And as we have up here, the aina, the vai kai, leva, we're the foundation of life and the source of the spiritual relationship between people and their environments. The health and well-being of the people was reflected in the health of nature around them. So that's kind of how we're going to open up this whole series of talks. And excuse us, because we was practicing hard for you guys. I mean, you know, so we just start getting out our jitters and stuff like that. But again, mahalo nui for coming. And
answer some questions. Raise your hand if you actually put your feet in the water every day. Or try to at least every day. I know we're not perfect, but at least make it effort. Okay, keep your hands up. How many of you try at least once a week? Okay, how many of you try once a month? Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you look at the ocean or see the ocean every day? Should be everybody, right? So we all have that kaipiko, and we want you to start thinking about ways that you already have that kaipiko. And one of the questions we wanted to ask you, maybe get the conversation going, is how do you practice kai management in your professional lives or maybe even your personal lives? Oh, okay. So we have a mic over there, we can come to you guys. Anybody want to share how they practice kai management after all that we've been talking about? I know there's many of you in here who do it, probably on a daily basis. Or if you have any comments or questions, you can open up the floor. We just wanted to get the conversation going.
I have a comment. I want to tell you how empowered I feel as an Indigenous person here. This is my first time listening to your presentation, and I've studied Indigenous education for a long time, and I'm so proud. I'm sitting here extremely empowered and extremely happy to see Indigenous people taking charge of how we think and how we see the world. And I'm just trying to express to you that I'm very pleased, because people always say that Indigenous people cannot. And for a long time now, we understand that we can. And I don't apologize anymore as an Indigenous person about what is best for Hawaiians or what is best for Indigenous people. So I just want to mahalo you for your hard work and for your kumu who teach you, and especially the community who has taken it upon themselves to help to educate us, no matter how old we are and no matter what kinds of credentials we have. We still don't know enough. But I'm empowered because I'm learning from Indigenous people. And I want to tell you how strong that is. I'm not sure that many Indigenous people actually believe it, but I believe it. And I'm expressing to you how critical that is for me as an Indigenous person. He Pukoa Kamehameha also exists in the world of Indigenous people, because in Australia, our Australian Aboriginal family believes that from little things, big things grow all the time. So I just want to mahalo you very much for being a part of this Papa, and mahalo Kamehameha Schools for taking the initiative to do this, because as a colonized people, we have to take care of ourselves, and we need to stop looking elsewhere for education when we can educate ourselves. So mahalo nui.
Okay. I'm Charles. I work for the Fishery Council. I do fishery management every day. I'm the program coordinator for the Indigenous program at the Future Council. You guys did some good work going out into the communities, but I've been a community activist for a long time. It takes a long time. So to really appreciate how much knowledge Hawaiians still have left about their resource management, you gotta go and question other people in other places. We have a lot of information now. We don't have as much as we could. The history of the way people came here really damaged the way we manage our resources. The estimates for people that live in Hawaii, that have lived in Hawaii at the time the Cook came is about 800,000 to 1 million people. And there were no imports. So they ate everything from the ocean. Right now, there's fewer people fishing in the ocean. So how much overfishing is going on? 50 to 80% of what we eat is imported. At one point, it all came from our environment. So they had skills on how to manage the resources and how to feed themselves, take responsibility. And trying to learn that back is going to be difficult. Trying to gain the support of the community is going to take a long time. Kamehameha Schools, I know you guys did great work at Haiti Akea, but also the council dumped $250,000 in that program to start with. So there's a lot of work that can be done, and should be done. Education is really important in this system. The system that existed, there's like the best practice, system of best practices for resources management had 5 things in it. They had a regulatory system that was adaptive. They had a code of conduct system. That's what we all, our customary thing, right? Don't take more than you can use or everything. You had community engagement. You had education, and you had eligibility criteria. We kind of all get messed up in the eligibility criteria because we're talking about, are we really talking about blood quantum or knowledge? And when we went out into the community and analyzed what they said, the criteria wasn't for blood quantum, wasn't the focus, it was the knowledge. So, how do you quantify the knowledge, how do you collect the knowledge, and how do you spread that to education? 5 things: regulatory system, a non-regulatory system, education, community engagement, and eligibility. And that, in my experience, all around the Pacific, that is the system of best practices.
If I can have you come up here, it might be a little easier so I don't take out anyone with a cord.
Aloha kako. I actually have a question. And I want to just support what both commenters said before me. It's really amazing work. I love what you've done. I love the case studies and having these posters on the wall. Thanks for sharing them. I love the recommendations and having some low-hanging fruit to start with, very off the line. If you can figure out a way to get those mangoes down, they're beautiful. Beautiful. And thank you for recognizing Council Foundation too. I think they do some really amazing work. So my question is, in your work, and I'm imagining you did some research globally, and thinking about how you would situate the work that you've done in global context, either thinking about how what we do in our oceans, our nearshore marine resources here has worldwide implications in oceans around the world, or in how the conversations that we're having figure in terms of kind of nation-state political discussions about what are the biggest environmental priorities that we should consider worldwide, or even in indigenous or other kinds of movements that are about ocean and marine resources. And so what kind of research did you do in that area, and how would you situate the discussions that you're having today in that context?
Thank you. I'll try to address that. That was a big question right there. We by no means are scientists. We've come from different disciplines and different backgrounds. We understood our limitations as far as understanding what was put out before us. So we called upon people in different fields that we felt were knowledgeable. So we did both interviews, we had forums with different marine managers, many of whom are present today, so mahalo for the support that they've lended. One of the important meetings that we had, we set up back in April. We had different managers from different areas, people who have served in different capacities with nonprofit, with government, in areas from Washington, D.C. to the Galapagos to the Philippines. So that was one of the ways. I'm not the science person, and thinking through some of those literatures was left to some of the fellows, but we had different works done by federal agencies, looking at different communities, especially coastal communities and other Pacific Island nations. So, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm explaining it properly, but yeah, definitely we did seek out experts in those fields because we knew our limitations of the Papa. So, anyone would like to add on to that?
Well, just a little bit. As she said, we looked at different articles that reference a lot in the Pacific, actually. Samoa, Palau, Fiji, Tonga, all these other Pacific Island nations, they're going through the same problems as we are. They're seeing the same things. Some of them might be a little bit more subsistence-based than us, and so it's a little more of a reality for them. And I think we're responding much as how they have. In Samoa and other island nations, what they've had to do is, okay, we have these traditional customary laws, but when outsiders come into my space, I don't have any jurisdiction over them, they don't have to listen to me. And so what those islands had to do was, okay, how do we marry this traditional customary law system with the legal system with the government? And so they had to go through this process to try to line those up and explain those traditional customs and cultural practices in law, codified it. So this person can have jurisdiction over this area even though it's not my people, it's not my village. And so as we see through some of the communities, especially Ha'ena, Mo'omomi, Miloli'i, and to some extent Ho'okena, they've been trying for years now to establish a community-based subsistence fishing area through which they are going to develop rules and regulations based on the customary cultural practices in that area. And it's been how many years now? I don't know, at least 6 or 10. They've been through this process for a long time. It's still not done, but they're getting there, and it's hard. How do you explain these things in a Western way, much less in legal terms? It's very difficult, and then to enforce it later is another issue, especially when you don't have enough people in the state, in the LNR, and don't care to enforce it. And so that was the extent of which we looked at other areas internationally and globally, but it's the same. It's the same.
Build on that briefly and then segue into some other comments and questions I have for you. Real questions. Number one, I think Malia said so clearly that a lot of this is about unity. And this Papa is key to Polynesian Voyaging Society as well. And in response to that last question, as you know, probably know, they're launching their worldwide voyage of the canoe. And it's a mission, not just that's about getting from here to there, but it's a mission to carry a message and a mission to extend a set of values. And Keahi was in Hilo, actually presiding over the honor ceremony that launched that mission. So all the content that's really coming forth from this is repeated to that for these organizations, and so they can carry this content with them around the world and gather more content as well. So I just want to commend Keahi as an individual, the Papa, and as Hawaiians, not, waiting for the world to solve our oceanic problems, but really gathering ourselves here under Noah's leadership of the Voyaging Society, the Huiva, as well as going through all the Pacific and then taking the Pacific message and the Pacific set of values around the world. So that's, and Mark over there, you're as well, and very active in PBS. So that's that one. Three comments. As a Hawaiian, I'm really appreciative that the way you act, the way you built this program, the foundation of everything is a worldview that matters. There's a worldview that really defines us as Hawaiian people. So you honored that in everything you've done, and the whole premise of this. So, mahalo. As an asset manager, we take your counsel into the recommendations, into advisement. We'll start thinking about that in our land assets division. We will be an advocate of this holistic concept. As we pursue our work, not only on our lands, but in the community of conservation, in the community of place-based management. So, as a contributor to this program, I just have to say some comment about you, and having not just based on what I saw today, but what I've seen through over the course of the year, is that you're a wonderful model of leadership. You approach this with a strong sense of caring. You approach the task and you this opportunity with a purpose. And you didn't shirk that purpose. You applied all the way through across the finish line to that purpose. It wasn't just something that was interesting for a while and then faded away, got lost in the other priorities. I love the way there was very little ego in the group. And as we passed from one person to person, you could tell they knew themselves, they knew each other, they knew the best roles they could play, and it all worked better as a team because of that. Nobody was climbing over the other to get to the top. And what a wonderful model of leadership. So those are the comments. Small kind of question, more focused kind of question about kind management. The one, and Kelly, I think you can bring a lot to this. The one place, when we looked at land management, we said we're going to need more hands. We need a force multiplier. And the creation of Aina Ulu and what's become ABED and so forth became our force multiplier, plenty hands on the land. When I think of the most people I ever see in the water through school programs, is what? Canoe. Are we adequately, for the privilege of being able to paddle canoe, are our canoe programs really giving back in the form of education about kind and stewardship of kind?
As far as the Hawaiian canoe is concerned, racing canoe, I think it's the intent of a lot of the clubs throughout the state to create that and to remind their members in each individual club about the values of traditional values important to perpetuating the Hawaiian canoe. And I speak from experience as head coach of Kamehameha Canoe Club. Woo! That's my number one year battle. But as far as what we're talking about, it needs to be way more. The competition of things has taken, it's kind of blanketed the whole cultural connection of what that canoe represents, whether it's fiberglass canoe, koa canoe. More importantly, that koa canoe, that canoe that you see there, connects the paddler to the land, connects the paddler to the heavens as well. And so, I know there's a lot of strong, tough clubs throughout the state as far as competition-wise, but when it comes down to the values of, what is this thing, the canoe? Do they really know, where it comes from? And being able to be one in the canoe, understanding that, that's something that, if you look at the Tahitians, how they paddle, it's really interesting. And it's a whole other style, but I think they've been able to reach back into being one with, being like the fish. I don't know how else to explain it, but you really gotta be like the fishermen in the canoe. And there's so much more that could be done as far as Hawaiian cultural values within a club. And I think it should be based on that. That's kind of how we base Keoka Canoe Club. Not that everybody gets it, but you know, I think that's the kind of, it really depends on the leadership of that body. But that's a lot of people, families, children that's affected. So definitely this type of PT for Kal Management and sustainability, that's like a perfect thing for it. But it just needs to be practiced, and you know, you gotta utilize those people, practitioners with that type of knowledge to carry that through.
I just wanted to add something because I found that a really interesting question. I'm 30-some years old. The first time I paddled in a canoe was in August at our orientation in Keoho. The second time I paddled a canoe was last month when we went to visit Moko'ea. So I come from the community of Ko'olauloa on the northeast end of Oahu. I went to Kupu High School, and we do have a canoe club, but they practice out of Hali'iwa, out of another boat altogether. The next closest to us would be Kamalulu. So just kind of throwing it out there that there's still definitely a need. I would have loved, I'm very much an ocean person, fishing and diving. But yeah, it speaks volumes for, look at where I feel has a great concentration of not only Native Hawaiians, but we're a coastal community in Ko'olauloa. And for us to have no opportunity there. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody and saying you gotta start something, but just shows the deficiencies that are out there. So I think that was really beautiful, and it, you know, Pa'a was a symbol for us as a Papa through this journey, and I would like to see it come back to our community as well.
Hi, aloha, my name's Adrian. I have a question, actually a comment first. I think it was a real good idea of the group to have the recommendations given by I'm sorry, I forgot the name, but kind of cracked over here. Like, any recommendations given by a man of your stature, I think that we're coming to serious consideration. You know, I'd like to see the draft of the Kai strategic plan on my desk. I think the recommendations were very good, very realistic, and it was a great part of the presentation to have concrete plans, and I think they were very realistic. And also, just regarding other organizations, specifically like the state of Hawaii's DLNR and NOAA's National Marine Fisheries Service, also the Fishery Council. I was wondering if, you know, whomever among you had more to do with some of the management plans that they have in effect. What were some of, well, just your opinions on the effectiveness of some of their efforts in community-based marine resource management, and maybe general feeling of the people that you spoke to across the state, what their feelings are generally on the efforts made by those other organizations.
So again, Timmy, I work for a Native Hawaiian nonprofit, and I work in our marine stewardship programs. I work very closely with the National Marine Fisheries Service. In fact, we have a representative here, Kara Miller, who is my program officer for a couple of my grants. In terms of the different agencies and organizations, like I said earlier, we did engage with different entities, both nonprofit. We had people from Nature Conservancy. We had advisors from Department of Land and Natural Resources, Department of Aquatic Resources. There's a general feeling in not only in these communities that we visited, but just statewide, that there's an understanding of lack of enforcement. That's whenever you hold any kind of meeting, that's the biggest problem. But it's not necessarily the problem. The problem is the behaviors or the poor behaviors that necessitate those type of enforcement. Some of the things surrounding doe care, and I feel for these guys that have this job. In the state of Hawaii, we have less than 100 doe care officers who are charged with managing over 3 million acres of water. On top of that, nearly 1.5 million acres of land. If you kind of compute those numbers per officer, that's nearly 15,000 acres, 50,000 acres that each of them are responsible. It's just really unrealistic. And again, they're not the problem. Our behaviors are, and not only just the social behaviors, but the impacts that we're affecting, like I was talking about climate change earlier, more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere due to industrialization that gets absorbed into our oceans. We're changing our chemistry. So, I mean, there's all of these things that come up, but this is kind of why, and we'll invite you guys to read our report. It'll be extremely comprehensive, and it has all of our processes and all of these people that we've engaged with. But we felt that we can't keep pointing fingers and calling people out that they're not doing their job, because it's, like I said earlier, it's the kuleana of all of us. We need to kind of all be aware, all take ownership of our actions and our community action, our family actions to drive this process. So it's kind of like, stop looking at the negatives and trying to point fingers, but what are we going to do to make positive changes? So I hope that kind of answered the question.
And then among some of the people in the community that you spoke to, was there like a general more positive than negative, or was there much mention of it?
What initially drove us was look at, and a lot of these communities that we've engaged with, they're all well, not all, but some of them are working towards a state-driven initiative, but community-based subsistence fishing areas. This started back in 1994 with the community of Mo'omomi, and I'm going to try to definitely share more about this because he was involved with all of this as well. But the state wanted to create these opportunities for the communities to be more involved in creating the policies or the management plans for those areas. Unfortunately, there's a disconnect between Western views of management and traditional Hawaiian views of management. So that process that started in 1994 went on, and they couldn't come to agreement, and unfortunately that process was abandoned. We have a couple of other communities who over the last 10, 15 years have restarted this process. So I believe Ha'ena and Miloli'i, two communities who have received this designation but are now still working on the plans. They're still working with the state in terms of coming together with some kind of a policy that can be applied specifically to that area. Again, we kind of not making excuses, but due to time restraints, and we took on so much in terms of our research, and that's why we called upon people who had been more involved in these areas to kind of to inform us in I guess complement with the research that we had done. So there's communities who are definitely working with the state, working with different agencies and organizations to kind of move that process. But I think the consensus with all of these communities is we can't wait. Our resources are important to us now. And some of them had just amazing resources, and they want to continue to see that. So they're taking these steps to ensure that their children and future children have the opportunity to see and to practice, because without these resources, we can't practice. Without practice, we lose essentially our culture. So.
I just want to make an announcement. Someone has a truck parked on South Street over here. It's a tollway zone right now. So I wouldn't share someone in the room.
I want to interrupt the flow of questions, but just I wanted to acknowledge three individuals. Trustee Lowe's came in after the initial introduction, so I want to thank you for taking time for the day. I saw somebody in the room, you know, who was a coach at Stanford. So our guest from Stanford, she's actually a local girl who's from Hawaii, who's part Hawaiian, who is part of our coaching faculty since Papa won the Papa Kalo, the very first, and every year since. And it runs a hugely popular, even if at times uncomfortable, videotaping communication. That's Terry Gorman, who's also a mother of two children at last year, Papa Lāhiki had some, just as every year, we've had great fellows from Aotearoa, and one of our Papa Lāhiki fellows, is here on their Fulbright Award, where he's done ongoing studies for PhD, better get a PhD, studying models of indigenous organizational management and governance. And he's been to the Midwest, I guess the Arizona area and so forth, but he's looking, see Alaska, one of our other participants in First Nations, KS, in his own Naitapu, which is crazy mom. Iwi model of Iwi that's dominant modelings on South Island and Aotearoa. So we just want to welcome everyone.
Aloha mai kākou. So first of all, I want to say, you guys did it! Congratulations, you guys. Phenomenal work that you guys did. It was just so awesome to see all the communities that you guys were able to tap into and be able to really, share a lot of their ike. But I'm curious to know, hearing from a lot of you when you did your introductions, you also come from kai communities yourselves. So just asking another question, for a lot of us, it's about sometimes starting in our own backyard and kind of understanding what our resources are in our backyard and what's happening and where's the kuleana and all that kind of stuff. So I want to know from your guys' perspective, where you guys are at with that, with your own communities. Is there efforts there that's going on? If not, where do you guys see yourselves now going through this process, obtaining some of this this information, and how do you then go back to your communities and now apply what you've just learned?
Each line of each to the side as frequently as I can. Get into the water and into the mouth. Stand up paddle surf. That's my favorite. That's my passion. Like Kimmy, the first time I was in the law, I'm half Hawaiian. I was more ashamed of this, but that was the first time when we went to Keoho, and I was in the law. Okay, but I always stand on the water, so I am still a water. But in the Waikana, Waimanalo, where I am a kumu, I also mentor Kuimalama Okikai. I do their district protocol for Waimanalo. So then the Oli, and like you said, all the Waikana, all the specialness of Waimanalo, Muli Waimanalo, Mana, Mapapoli, all the beauty of God's ideas, we like to say. But when I look back on really what I'm doing, I'm teaching the future. I'm teaching them why. I'm teaching them why of my preschoolers who are 2 and 3 year olds to aloha their aina. Malama their aina. Take care of the kuleana. And of anything, it's really humbling when a kiki can shame you. It's like, Auntie, that's not pono. Or what they doing is pono ole. And if they can differentiate between what is pono and what is pono ole in their daily practices, and then extend that out into their community, into their families. Some families didn't even know what pono ole was. The kiki went home, they said, oh, mommy, that's pono ole. The mommy came back to me the next day and said, it's pono ole. And it's like, so they are teaching their own as well as moving forward for our of the Hawaii. Yeah, so my kuleana really is to the Hawaii, to our future, and to the kiki and Waimanalo first. And like we
was saying, you know, there's not many teachers that are as comfortable as I am teaching Kai units. But I'm so fortunate that I live in Makiki and I go through Makapu. That's Manalua every day. And I want to mahalo you because, you know, I am so attached to that. But I will go down to Makapu and I will gather, you know, little stars for them, you know, anything that I can bring into the classroom that will help them connect to really what is there in their special place already. Not a lot of teachers will go out there at 6:30 in the morning with shorts on before you gotta come to Kuma to go into the water and to go look under each and every rock for something for the kikitisi. Or to take a net and just to scoop inside a tide pool. Like what Kiai was saying before. Just feed the fish. That's the first thing we do. We feed the fish, let the fish come. Yeah? But as an educational experience, you know, scoop them up, provide a little aquarium so the kids can actually see what an impact, well not impact, but what an environment looks like underwater. Some of them, you know, they don't know what these things are. So just label them. This is OP. This is PPP. You know, this is Moaku. This is Keone. Connect all of that. And we always connected that. Well, he gave us this. We are thankful. And with love and gratitude, we need to malone for each other. So much for the future. And that's just me, honestly. But we know it's getting late, and we know a lot of people have already, had to go along the way. And again, we truly appreciate your questions and your comments. And I would just like to ask if anybody else has a question or comment. If not, we just want to mahalo those of you that are on the web and have joined us from afar. We truly appreciate your mana because it truly comes coming through the TV to us. But we also like to mahalo the people that are here that have gathered to love and support us through this because as a papa, it is a feeling that really matters. And we love each other. So just mahalo from the bottom of all of our hearts. We're just thinking out of your day and sometime out of your busy work schedule just to be with us here today. So
So we've all chosen to live in this place that we call home, this island home of Hawaii. It's very unique and it's very special. We're an island people surrounded by water. Did you know that the Pacific Ocean makes up over 1/3 of the Earth's surface? That's huge. So us more than anyone should understand the importance of kai to our livelihoods, to our self-identity. Some of the challenges that we face or our marine resources face are biological. These include invasive species, plants and animals. As evidenced in the picture behind the slide, it's a picture of Kaneohe Bay and the invasive algae that's taken over and smothered our reefs. So this leads to decline in the coral reefs. Certain species can't live in that area. Climate change, this is a huge and very real problem, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Sea levels are rising. There are some of our Polynesian cousins who are having to be moved off of the only place that they know is home because they're being pushed out of it. The waters are coming up and it's just, there's no land there. Changes in our ocean chemistry due to ocean acidification and thermal stresses. Species just cannot survive. And when these species that we rely upon for food sources can't survive, the other animals that rely upon them, they either decline or they move away. So imagine if the pelagic species like tunas just don't have food sources here anymore, they move off to other areas that do. So if you thought the price of ahi was high now, imagine it later. Other things like social, economic, coastal development. You know, we're an island. There's at some point where we reach a capacity. So the more people that we have here taking from our resources, it puts this stress on what we have available. Along with that are truly our unsustainable harvesting practices. This is something that we know is a problem. Not everybody fishes or harvests in a Pono way. And unfortunately, we don't have the resources, or the people in charge of protecting these resources just don't have the ability to manage it.
population growth, we talked about that. But overall, like, what does this do to us as a people, culturally? You know, we rely upon the ocean for food, rely upon the ocean to continue our practices, and just to enjoy the life that we live here in Hawaii. And this is not by any means a Hawaiian problem. Every one of us in this room and everyone that's on this island has chosen to live here for a reason. And it's a blessing that we were able to be here. So this is a kuleana of all of us, not just Hawaiians, but everyone who calls Hawaii home. So it is all of our kuleana. One component that we found could be a response to address these challenges is community-based kai management. So we deliberately use the word kai to replace marine because it recenters ourselves. It recenters our piko, and it honors this place and the people of this place. These photographs here showcase a bunch of the communities and people that we met. And the beautiful thing about it is they already know this. They understand how important kai is to themselves and their families. These are the people or the communities that have the vested interest in protecting their resources. So we are very fortunate to learn from them, and we want to continue sharing with you all what we learned. Ea mai ki kai mai.
So before we had community-based kai management, we had to become a papa. So when we first came together as a papa in September, we were given a task, but it was more like a topic. Community-based marine resource management. Now we had to make a research project, or actually we chose to make a research project. And to guide that research project, we had to have a few questions that we were going to answer. So here are just a few of the major driving questions that we tried to address this year. The first and foremost, what is community-based marine resource management? We had to understand it if we were going to be able to apply it and understand how it works. Next, is it an effective strategy? I mean, we can study it all we want, but if it's not effective, and most specifically, if it's not effective in Hawaii, then is it a strategy that we want to employ? And as a Kamehameha Schools First Nations Futures Papa, we were really concerned and saw this as an opportunity to see if this was a management strategy that Kamehameha Schools could employ, both in kai stewardship, but also in engaging communities. So first we went looking to find the answer to the first question. What is community-based marine resource management? Now community-based marine resource management had a number of working definitions. One of them was a measure actually to be a response to harmful actions that humans have taken upon the ocean resources. A couple others were co-management strategies. So for one of them, it was a co-management strategy that actually allowed communities on the coastline to be engaged in managing their own resources. It was also a co-management strategy for the government to try to share responsibilities, kind of disperse that responsibility. But as you'll see in the presentation that we have for you today, we went to a bunch of communities and we realized that those definitions weren't really working. So we are bringing to you a new definition of community-based kai management. So community-based kai management is a community-driven management strategy rooted in place-specific Native Hawaiian cultural practices, knowledge, and values that addresses both ecological and social issues with the goals of perpetuating resources. Now I want to break it down a little bit and explain why we chose this definition. First of all, it's community-driven. So it's not just community-based, it's not based on those coastal communities, it's actually driven by those communities. They're the ones that rely on the resources and live there, so it should be driven by them. Also, it's place-specific. As we've been talking for the first part of this presentation, ea mai ke kai mai. It is from the sea that we come into the sea from which we return, or to which we return. So if that's the case, then we understand that it's a very important aspect of any kind of management strategy for our oceans to be place-specific and honor the traditions that we have here. The traditions, the values, and the ike that's been passed down from generation to generation, within specific to place and specific to Hawaiian. And finally, we wanted to add social issues. Ecological issues are very real, and as Kimmy talked about, are very scary as well. And we wanted to make sure that a valid and good community-based kai management strategy was one that addressed those biological and ecological also address the social concerns that Kimmy talked about. But before we could even get to this definition, we have to get some of the ike and mana for the communities that we drive this. So we decided on a case study for our project. The case study allowed us to look at specific instances of a larger phenomenon so that we could create an analytical framework to start comparing and contrasting across communities. Now the biggest advantage of this was actually that we could align our research with traditional Hawaiian values and management practices. So we could actually highlight and bring out a lot of the unique things and unique and good things that are coming out of communities, but at the same time creating a framework that we could start to compare and contrast across communities and bring out themes and bring out solutions that work both in specific places and across oceans, honestly. So where did we go? We tried to make it as statewide as possible. So those triangles actually show you all the places we went to. Now you'll see we were in Ha'ena and Kauai and all the way down to Miloli'i and Ho'okena on Hawaii Island. And we tried to get as many places on as many different islands as possible. We tried to have some variety of geographical area and population makeup. But we did try to find communities. We really targeted communities that were in the water and doing something. And so in the spring of this year, we went on a really amazing huaka'i. And we would actually just like to share a little bit of that huaka'i. Ea mai ke kai mai.
To begin our journey, the first place that we started was up at the top of that Ha'ena on the island of Hawaii, where we had the privilege of meeting a very, very valuable community member. His name is Ka'iki. Now Ka'iki is a Hawaiian cultural practitioner at the age of 2.5 years old. Now, the breadth of what this young man has to teach us is great, namely because he is the Moa'i. He is our future. And when we were there, the Moa'i was able to point out the different wahi that he knew of by name. He was able to point out what he got from these different wahi. Now, at 2.5 years of age, the Moa'i is a Hawaiian cultural practitioner who lives in the elements of the environment, of nature. He's been blessed with awesome mentors as far as the interest. They live a lifestyle that puts them outside the barriers of walls and windows. And in the breath of Aina. What a lucky man he is, a fortunate one. Someone we can all learn from in our early years. We traveled west, along my east. We traveled to Mokauea. Mokauea is a cluster of islands, well actually a grouping of islands within the Cape and resides within the Kalihi Papa Lāhiki. Within this space, Kamehameha III, Kamikeoni, took upon himself to name the Kaeki fishing grounds, royal fish grounds, took it upon himself to ensure that the Kanaka living in this space would maintain the mana and the aloha resounded in this space. Took it upon himself to employ David Maori as the police to manage those resources, mala. And then the third took it upon himself, his advisory, his constituents, really double down and take on that kuleana to nurture just one corner of the breadbasket of Mamala. Now here you see the people walking upon the papa. And what they bring with them is their mana. And with their mana, fused in their motivations and interests to learn about this space that has been been drastically changed. Every time you guys go down an airplane line, you may notice, see 3 groupings of seaplane airways. Okay. At one time, you could walk out to these places. You could walk to Maori or San Diego on foot at full time. Something you cannot do. 41 fish ponds, 7 fisheries, numerous salt beds. They are my feet. As we travel east to Mauna Loa, we were very fortunate to link up with the Mauna Loa Fish Pond Heritage Center, who has gone to great lengths to set up collaborations with private landowners who fortunately have existing punawais, remaining punawais of Mauna Loa in their backyard. Access is a big issue. When you think of Mauna Loa in today's time, don't think of it as a Hawaiian plain. However, what is Hawaiian is still there. The Punawai still flows. It still provides fresh water to the local i'a that is downstream. And it's through partnerships between nonprofits and community leaders where greater awareness can be brought and more cultural resources, natural resources, academic and EK resources can be maintained. As you continue, O'omomi Moloka'i. I don't have to say anything. Makunga Poi Poi. Akua Aina of this wahi here is living proof, my eyes, Papa's eyes, that Lāhiki management protocols, when implemented in an isolated area with a community who is engaged, not only because they subside off of the research here, but have a genealogical tie to the space, provide an environment that was once over-harvested to flourish in the now. And he said it himself. It's not like it was back in Tutu's day, coming back. And that's a good step forward. Moving on to the island of Maui, we went off to Kia and had the privilege of speaking with our hermit, Kal, another Kua'aina, backbone and pillar of this isolated community. It was through his vast knowledge and EK and practice that he has been able to mentor the next generation of Kanaka root Jews who stay out there and perpetuate the things that he's learned from them. Those in Koki and Mo'olea, around the corner, he is that next generation of a hermit, their mentor. The Kanaka in Mo'olea and Koki, they're us. They're our age. They're out here and have taken it upon themselves to continue with good works, continue to learn and observe, and very much like Tokiaki said, maintain those resources so that those who come from outside know that it is not a take all view, it is a respect of space, a respect of relationship, and mostly respect of our poor. As we traveled east, we went to Miloli'i. We were fortunate enough to link up with Kaimi people, known as Lake Kaupu. And in one of the last fishing villages in the state, they too are making great efforts to educate their community, to manage their resources so that they can stay in the place. So they don't have to travel 2 hours to Kona, 2 hours to Kilo to be employed. Why not be employed managing the resources right there? Through their academy, they have touched many young Hmong to continue the practices of their culture. Lastly, Ho'okena. And it is here where we were fortunate to experience and share one of the Damien Kennison. And the statement he had was, as long as our canoes are on the beach and in that fight, our identity is still alive. And it is our kuleana to educate those that come to respect that space. Yeah,
So isn't that nice? We did it with me, had a lot of fun. Actually, we also did a lot of work during those visits. We conducted ethnographic interviews with our community members. And from those ethnographic interviews and the notes that we took, we were able to conduct thematic content analysis. I'm the researchers. So I'd just like to share with you some of the themes that we brought on. These are by no means all. We had a huge, huge database of all of our themes. But these are the ones that really stood out to us and the ones that we felt that the communities that we spoke to communicated were very important to them as well. So the first one, aha, I think we're all very familiar with what aha is. It's kind of a pain, a heart sickness. And you would think that that wouldn't be a really great value to have, but actually, when you're looking at community-based kind of resource management, it's really important because you can get heartsick when you don't have fish in your kite. You can get heartsick when your kids don't know the same kind of knowledge that you have and they don't want to learn. And so this was the case in Miloli'i. We had actually fishermen who were hesitant to share the knowledge that they had because they knew if they shared it, it could be used against them. Competition for resources, it's something that brings a lot of people heartsickness and aha. Another one, aloha. I mean, that's so familiar to us. We say it all the time, oh, aloha, you know. But translated to a love for kai and a love for aina is really important. Groups and active individuals, it can drive you to actually become active and to care about a place. So in Mauna Lua, they demonstrate their aloha for the aina and kai regardless of their ancestry. As we heard, Mauna Lua, not something that we consider a very Hawaiian place, but actually it is. I mean, if you have aloha for a place, if you take care of it, you know, there's a lot to be said for that. Your aloha is very powerful for that place. Connection to a place, and you might realize that these are all kind of linked, but a connection to a place, a genealogical connection, as well as a connection through taking care of those resources, those were something that was really important to our community members. And of course, as we spoke to you, Mauka and Makai, our community members really communicated to us that, hey, it's a no-brainer for us. We realize that our Mauka and Makai resources are so intrinsically linked that to consider one without the other is it's stupid. Okay. In addition to the values which made our community so strong, the cling to traditions and that traditional knowledge, they shared with us some of the challenges that they face. And here we have development and loss of land. And of course, if you lose your land, if you have land that's developed, you lose a lot of access to resources. You lose a lot of resource help. Open access was a huge one. So remote, isolated communities, they have a little bit of easier time controlling access to their resources. But if not, you get overfished. You get a lot of people trampling on your reefs. And so what kind of different challenges does that present to your community? A lack of enforcement. If you, as a community member, don't have the same kind of enforcement authority as a state official, how does that affect the way that you're able to manage your resources? And finally, again, community engagement. How do you get your keiki and your opio to want to manage your resources? How do you change mindsets of kupuna who don't necessarily who don't necessarily share the same values that maybe now we do? Okay, and then the impacts of community-based kind management were something that the communities also shared with us. Really, they're seeing a lot of biological changes in the resources. One community member noted that with their community-based kind management strategies, they actually have higher fish counts than areas that are closed for no fish, no take zones. So that's actually really interesting. There's a lot to learn then. How can we mediate between the interests of fishermen and the interests of conservationists? Or is there a happy medium? And I think the community members are saying, yeah, there is. Greater awareness of kaya issues and marine issues, pollution, overfishing, scarcity.
And then using the communities to actually create a model which can then be used for solutions. Okay, and then they also identified ways that they thought they actually really needed help. And those three are up here. Actually, there's a whole lot, but these were some really important ones that came up over and over again. Education, greater community management and self-management of resources, and creating socioeconomic opportunities for community members in their communities.
So we visited the communities and we have it all on the back wall, and we developed the themes. So what is the next step? The next step was the findings. What did we learn from our site visits? What did we learn from our interviews? What did we learn from the community? And the first thing we learned was the higher fish counts, the OP, the higher fish count, higher OP counts, the flourishing legal beds that we've seen at these places that we visited was a result of isolation and responsible stewardship. And what we mean by that is like a community like Momomi that is isolated, or Kianai is isolated, that has restricted access to this area. And only the community knows where to go fishing, where's the best legal. That contributes to that. But also they couple that with responsible stewardship. So the Konohiki way of fishing. Not how much you catch. They don't limit you how much you catch. They don't tell you guys gotta catch more than 10 fish. They tell you how to fish. They tell you what's the proper way to fish. And by that what we mean is if you catch babies, then go. If you catch the big ones, then go, because those will reproduce and make better fish stock. When you collect OP, only collect 4 from one area. Leave the big ones because they will make big OPs, and leave the babies and keep moving down. So it's how you fish. And that's the key thing for a lot of these communities is how, rather than how much. And by doing that, they create a sustainable system that they can always go back and count on being able to put food on the table. The second one was kuleana regardless of ownership. A lot of these communities don't own the land that is adjacent to these resources. They're communities. They don't own the land. They don't own the land or they don't own the ocean. Usually it's DLNR. And as Kimi had mentioned, DLNR has a lot of challenges in terms of managing these resources. So these communities have taken the kuleana to make these resources and these places their own, even though they don't have ownership. So you transcend that ownership barrier. You say, even though we don't own it, we're going to make it ours. This is our kuleana. This is what we're going to take care of. And that was a key thing for a lot of these communities, was taking ownership. And what we found is the DLNRs or the landowners would take a step back because they know that the resources are in good hands. The third thing we found out was the importance of relationships and management. And Kiahi opened our series based on that relationship. The relationships of people to the place, knowing your place, knowing the seasons, knowing when the rains come, knowing the resource, knowing when the fish reproduce, when not to catch a certain kind of fish, when to harvest opihi, when they're reproducing, knowing all of these things and that knowledge that these communities know of their specific place, and each place is unique and different. But that relationship to the place and that knowledge of the place helps them in that management. And it's not only about people to the place, it's also people to people. Because these communities are able to come together and say, we're going to establish a fishing pool. We're gonna set protocols on how you fish. That's that people to people relationship and that respect that people show to one another and the community show to one another in terms of making this system work. And then also the practices to the place and what the people practice at the place. And like we mentioned, that Konohiki system, that's a specific traditional practice for these specific places. So it's the relationship of how people relate to the place, how the place relate to the people is very key in this system of management. The fourth thing is communities. The sources of cultural knowledge and practice. And again, when we look at all the communities and all the people, they have the knowledge. A lot of this, what we've experienced, isn't in books. They have all the knowledge up in their head. They know when the fish spawns. They know where to go if you want to eat nemo. When we visited Momomi, we're going out on one of our huakai, and we asked Uncle Mac, we gotta make sandwiches. He goes, no, be fine, be okay. So we went on, we followed him, we stopped at the limo, we cleaned. We go to the next place, we take what we eat. We go to the next place, we did Uki. He brought fish. We cleaned all of our stuff, sat down, and that was our lunch. And that was real powerful for us, especially for me. I was thinking we gotta make sandwiches, we're gonna be hungry. His perspective was, no, we're gonna collect from the land. The land would feed us, and that was foreign to me and for a lot of us. So when I sat down and I said, wow, we eating what we gathered. That was striking, and that's that knowledge. I wouldn't, if I was to visit Momomi, I wouldn't know where to go, but he knew, and it's that relationship and that knowledge of the place, and all of that knowledge is in the community, and what's important is that it's intergenerational, and they teach that knowledge, and they keep passing it down, and so if we want to learn about these places, we want to learn about the protocols, all of that knowledge is in the community. The last thing is the importance of understanding Aina and Kai as parts of the same system. And I think every day we experience Aina, we experience Kai, but we never think of it as one. When you look at it from a Hawaiian traditional way, that Ahupua'a, it is one, a Maka-Makai connection. What's interesting is we tried to find a Hawaiian word that incorporates both, and there really isn't. And so it is two parts, but it is one when you look at it from a Hawaiian sense. And it's really kind of changing, it's how do you change that paradigm? People, when we look at a land, we often look at it, we're looking Mocha, we're looking at all the land, but our backs is to the sea. So how do we either go on a canoe and look at it from the outside of the ocean so we can see the sea, or we go at the top of the mountain and look down so we can see the land going out into the ocean? And it's changing that perspective. And what we found is a lot of these communities have that perspective, is that Kai and Aina is the sea. And that relationship is important. What you do on the land affects the ocean. What you do in the ocean affects the land. And so this is all what we learned from the community. And so our next step was to, what we learned is that community-based Kai management works, and this is successful. And all these communities is evidence of that. So then how do we transition to, how can community-based Kai management create opportunities for Kamehameha Schools, being that we are above Kamehameha. And so our next step was to take a look at Kamehameha Schools and see, okay, what are the opportunities? How can we apply what we learned to Kamehameha Schools? And what we discovered is, well, I'm a planner. And so I gravitated to what I knew best, and that's the land. And so what we wanted to do was get a sense of Kamehameha land holdings and get a sense of how much land touches the ocean. And so based on our land, we have 265,000 acres in the state of Hawaii. Of that, 75 linear miles of coastline belongs to Kamehameha Schools. What does that translate to? That translates to 10%, because there's 750 linear miles of coastline in Hawaii. 10% might not seem a lot, but the largest next landowner that owns more coastline is the state of Hawaii. And so this is a significant amount. And remember in our last slide, Kai and Aina is one, and changing that perspective. Not turning your back to the sea, but looking at the sea and the Aina. When we connect this 75 linear miles of coastline to Kamehameha's land, we know they own 365,000 acres of land. If we take the traditional Ahupua'a view, Kamehameha has 176,727 acres of land connected to these ocean coastlines that they own. And this, I was with LIMS. Thank you, LIMS, for all your support on everything. We got to put a caveat that this is GIS acreage and for planning purposes only, trying to make a point. But when we look at this, we're not even including the forest reserves, for Kapulehu and all that thousands of lands up here. But when you look at it from that view, almost 50% of Kamehameha School lands has a relationship to Kai, and that's significant. So, it's kind of changing that paradigm, changing that perspective. How do you look at Kai? How do you look at land? How do you look at it as one? And we want to either get in a canoe and look at it as a whole system, like that Aukwa, or go to the top of the mountain and look down, so you can see all the land and the Kai extending past. Ea mai ke kai mai.
So we have seen the great extent that Kamehameha has stewarded its lands properly. They have really taken to their cultural kuleana, we believe. There's also great potential with almost 50% of that land not maybe touching the ocean, but in relation. And as everyone said before, it's all about relationships. Us, the land, us, the ocean. The land and the ocean, everything. And so we know that by taking care of the land, which Kamehameha is awesome at, we're taking care of the ocean as well. However, KS hasn't really said that. They're not directly referencing Kai, and they're not saying all the things, all the amazing things that they're already doing for our Kai and for our Kai resources. So this slide up here, we just wanted to look through the existing existing policies and plans, starting up from the strategic plan, and we looked at a bunch of land asset division plans for those of you who aren't affiliated to KS, LAD. If you start up at the mission, in the end, it's to improve the capability and well-being of our Hawaiian people. We do that, especially through the land, by taking care of it, by practicing ethical, prudent, and culturally appropriate stewardship of our lands and resources. Our policies kind of lay out how we're going to manage our resources, and we got a book of the policies. If you ever looked at a printout, it's about this thick binder. We went through that, and we only could find one that specifically referenced the ocean. You can see here, it's under water resources management. So it's not specifically about Kai, but it's saying we're going to worry about our effects when we manage our water. So it's there. It's there in our agriculture plans, because we're saying that as Kamehameha Schools, we're going to restore and revitalize traditional systems, which include our fish ponds. But as you look through those plans, they're largely focused on the ag side. And there's so much potential to develop the many local ila that Kamehameha Schools has, and to work with the communities around those areas. And then at the bottom, I just wanted to highlight through the natural resources management plan, that connection again from Mauka to Makai. As we restore the ecosystem of Mauka, as we manage the threats, we will also help our reefs, our ocean, and all the resources that lie within it. So that's more on the land side, but we all know Kamehameha Schools is an educational institution. And how does Kai fit in there? We know through Extension Ed, but I think you guys changed the name. Hawaiian Culture Base? Hawaiian Culture Base? Yeah? Hawaiian Culture Base education now. The Keiki learned there about Mauka-Makai relationships that we've been talking about. And on individual levels, teachers who are really ma'a with Kai, like Malia, for example, she will go out of her way to teach her Keiki about these things. But there's nothing really on a comprehensive level in terms of Kai curriculum and lessons and units like that. But it's happening. You see here, we just have two examples of a more formal collaboration at local ea and in the North Shore. We have a Malama local ea community collaborator who takes care of that with Kamehameha School support. Then we have Mokoea, which we talked about, which is more on an informal relationship level. We have a few science teachers up at Papa Lāhiki campus who bring their students down, and I'm sure other programs too have taken their keiki there, and they go out and along with the place. So we have more formal relationships, more informal ones, but relationships nonetheless. Relationships are, you have give and take. So Kamehameha Schools gives support, gives resources, gives time, and what do they get in return? They have these awesome, outside, relevant, connected, real educational opportunities for their beneficiaries. And that's amazing because that's our mission as an educational institution. So really we see that as we engage communities through CHI resource management, we can expand our educational opportunities as well, and also promote the perpetuation of traditional cultural knowledge and practices. Okay. So in summary, I just wanted to, we made this slide to kind of show the relationship and what are the opportunities for Kamehameha Schools to engage more in CHI management. What happens if they do that? So you have this mission that's, of course, you're educating. You have your campuses, you have your community ed side, and then you have the new, relatively new land focus and all the things that are happening there. Where they overlap, you have increased educational opportunities, and a lot of those right now are Aina-Ulu collaborations like local yeah. But what if you expanded that view of what you malama and what your kuleana is for as land stewards to include CHI? When you do that, you only increase the educational opportunities for all of our keiki, for our adults, our kupuna, and of course our culture, and all of that all together is our well-being. The potential is great. KS is already doing it individually and on the program level. And so let's build on these efforts, let's expand, let's take advantage of those opportunities. Communities are doing it, as you can see up on the wall, and what we talked about, individuals are, and organizations can as well. So we also wanted to give an example of an organization that's supporting community-based CHI management.
So shifting gears a little bit, we wanted to highlight an organization that we felt was at the forefront of leading some of this change, some of this, leading the marine efforts in the state. So the Harold K.L. Castle Foundation was founded in 1962, and currently it's the largest private foundation based in Hawaii. They're also the largest fund in the state for direct marine conservation efforts. And how they demonstrate this is through their mission, part of which is to restore Hawaii's nearshore marine populations so that future generations can benefit and learn from this resource. In 2011, they also created a new position, a program officer for marine conservation, and this individual was responsible to update what they call their marine theory of change. So it's basically, they've laid it out in their mission, in their policies. This marine theory of change acts as a few things. It's a guide that it articulates their values and their philosophy, which of course leads their organization. It acts as a strategic plan that lays out how they give. They're a foundation that provides grant opportunities to nonprofits and other organizations. They also use this theory of change as a practical device to evaluate those grant-making strategies and how they make their decisions. So I could talk on and on about how the efforts that they've done and the commitment that they've made, but just kind of in general, I would highly recommend, if you haven't, take a look at their website, take a look at the model that they've set up, because it's a great model. But essentially, some of the impacts that they have, they look at in the short term how we can, what we talk about, change that mindset. Understanding the social changes and our behavioral changes that need to take place. And in the long term, that will be the benefit to our ecosystems, the biological changes that can be improved upon. One of these assumptions or these vision statements, I really felt it embodied a lot of what we're trying to say today, and that quote is, "Our culture, our economy, and our livelihood are inextricably interwoven with the health of our nearshore marine resources. Consequently, the conservation of our environment is critical to the perpetuation of our people." I thought that was just really beautiful, and it really embodies what we need to do. So, ea mai ki kai mai. So moving forward, we talked about all of the different initiatives that Kamehameha Schools has undertaken over these years. I was not fortunate to have graduated from this prestigious educational system. However, I absolutely was a beneficiary of Hawaii's will. When I was in the 5th grade, had the privilege of going to Ho'omaka'ikai, one of the enrichment programs. I currently professionally work at Loko'ea Fish Pond, so it enriches my professional life. So there's so many positive things that Kamehameha Schools has done for not only Native Hawaiian children, but just children and people of this land. So we want to acknowledge that work. However, there's definitely more that can be done, and expanding those current KS perspectives on a more formal basis to, like we said, include them in some of the strategic plans, in some of the land and different plans that KS has. So, ea mai ki kai mai.
Okay, so what now? Okay, so the recommendations as far as an institution, what we do, right? We have plenty of recommendations, and I hope as we were going through the different slides and stuff, you guys see how important just changing the mindset and including the Kai a little bit more in our institution can take us that much farther as far as being well, providing the well-being, well-balance that we talked about earlier. I know 2 types of mango. If the mango outside there, I was looking on the tree. No matter how tall I am, I cannot get that mango. And then I get the kind of mango down at Kapahulu, the tree is only like this, like this. So we go Kapahulu, pick that mango first. And that's the recommendation. So, it's fast, it's quick. It will cost a little bit of money, but this is what needs to happen. Okay? So, first of all, we gotta look at the organization, the whole organization, and take an assessment of what is being done. Because there's plenty being done. We see it. But again, when you look at all those different policies, the word Kai. Pay a lot of attention to Aina and those things, but where is Kai in that? We do it, but it needs to be in that. And so just think about it. Yeah. How much do you think about Kai in your different divisions? And this includes all of us, yeah. Not just a shift in mindset for Kamehameha Schools, but communities. We don't hide it. We came out of the ocean. And so we really all need to take a look at what we're doing and how we'll continue perpetuating and sustaining that. Second thing you could do is hire a marine ecologist. That one person is not the answer, but it's a start as far as providing the expertise and the bridge for the many divisions within KS. And that would help, because that person could go out and do exactly what we did in the individual communities, see what's being done, take those best practices, and then implement in your organizations. And then there it is, formally include Kai in your policies. Every time you sit down, however you do it, you make your decisions. Don't forget to include it and think about it. Super, super important. Be deliberate and understand that that's key to the importance of well-being, well-balance. Okay? Now I will go outside and I will get that mango. But it's high, So I'm gonna use a long stick. After you do that, the development of Kai-based curriculum. Yeah. Kai-based curriculum, education, all these shared practices cannot happen without expertise from these communities, from these people. We gotta engage those guys and figure out what it is that they're doing. What they're doing more Momi works for more Momi. That same practice not to work, Kyokaha, not to work Milodi. But then it's important for the institution to understand that each community is different. They have a different way of their traditional practices. But that is all very valuable. As a Native Hawaiian institution, you want that. You want to create that. So once you figure out what that is, then you can build your curriculum specific to those schools within those areas, those KP, those youth. Second one would be foster the networking and collaboration. Continue that. There's a lot of that going on. Within the Ainaulu alone, there's a lot of different collaborators that is currently working with the Kai. But you gotta keep those relationships strong. These guys who are going out, these communities that we visited, a lot of them don't have the support, but they do have the heart. They do have the passion to sustain what they believe in and what they feel is best for their coastal areas and their natural resources. So we need to help support those guys to keep doing what it is that they do. And by doing that, we all win. In that also comes the learning. What we talked about earlier. So it's kind of all connected. And then build a community capacity. Right? And we can empower communities. Communities is what make things happen. If you get the support of the community, they're a force to be reckoned with. So these are just some of the recommendations that after doing all this study and stuff like that, that's the main goal in Kapolu and the main goal that was right over there. You guys know we're checking all these. But okay. And this brings us to our last slide. So why community-based Kai management? Why do it? And I know this all along is super famous, you guys heard it. But what does it mean? There's a literal translation in the column. Coral reef that grows into an island. Person beginning small, it gains steadily until he becomes firmly established. Now, how does that connect to what we're talking about? Every relationship starts from something, right? So, to me, that coral reef takes millions, I don't even know how long it takes, but that constant, the constant growth, the constant effort slowly becomes that island. The community-based Kai management will strengthen both Kai resources as well as behaviors and mindsets. That's one of the first things, the hardest things to do is change people's way of thinking. But slowly as we start talking about Kai more and more and more, the island starts to come out of the Kai. So that's something that we got to kind of do on a constant basis, and it takes time. It's not going to change tomorrow, but there's things we can do right now. And all we got to do is include it in how we think. And what is it? The what? By joining these important efforts, KS can take a leadership role in stewardship. Leadership role. It's about that well-being, that relationship. So here's a huge opportunity to say that hey, we might own all the lands and not the ocean, but We care about the ocean just as much as the land because we understand that the relationship and the connection of land and kai is seamless. And so we gotta start thinking like that. We gotta start being like the fish. When you sail on the canoe, you become like the shark and the ulu in the ocean. When you're up in the koiwi, you become like the mama. These relationships are truly important. This will improve Native Hawaiian well-being by honoring and perpetuating the Native Hawaiian worldview. So that's what we have for you today. And we'll pass this on to Peter Mike Kaiwai.
Jerry, like this is the last one. And the more that you hear us talking, it's pilina. The relationships that we have with one another that truly bring us closer together. It was our relationship with Auntie Joni Lobud and Mokawea. She and I are both the same age, early 50s, still doing our thing. We grew up in the same era. Learning from our makua how to malama our resources in the ocean. I learned how to gather from my kupuna. And to this day, our family still gathers like our kupuna did. I'm very grateful for that. It was the pilina that I immediately felt with Auntie Joni Babud as she talked about her aina and her wahipana and mokawea. But like how Holly said before, there was plenty eha in her voice. As you fly over Mokawea, you realize that it was a papalimulimu that you could walk across and gather everything that you need to sustain you and your family, knowing that you're only going to take what you need. You're not going to break it. You're not going to take it all. You're going to take a little bit. Like what Scott said when we went to Mo'omomi. I was fortunate enough to go on several of the Huaka'i. And there is in each of the communities. But there's also a lot of pride in what they do. And their ike and the mana'o that they shared with us has built us even stronger as Kanaka Maori. With Auntie Joni, and we remember trying Goya, Kua Kanaka Aina. Kakua takes care of Kanaka, because not going to take care of the Aina, and it's that reciprocity. Auntie Joni trusts Kia Kua. She trusts Kia Kua to send the right people to Mokawea. And she thanked us and she cried, and I still feel her out in my boy. Did he call me? Because now, when I hornied her, I didn't only horny her. I hornied everybody that came before her, everybody that struggled before her. And I carried that with me, just like all my papa. The communities that we went to, their kuleana is on our shoulders now. And we share that with you. And we thank you for sharing your ike and mana'o with us. Because it is because of that pilina that we can continue to go on and move forward together for our Hawaii. I just want to ask you just for one moment. I'm going to take this off for a moment. Just look. We need an answer right now. Just look. Tell me what you see. Not tell me what you see, just look. We see all this aina. Kamehameha School has done a great job within the last 15 years of our strategic planning to focus on our aina, build it up, make it more, just more mama for our people. We have a va'a, but where's the kai? Where's the kite? I see you got the pointing up. Way over here's the kite. Oh, little bit is the kite. Kamehameha Schools, you did this. You made our aina momona. You made it ikaika. You made it strong. Look, we're strong. We need to take that canoe into some water. So as we move into this next 15 years of our strategic planning, we need to continue to take that into consideration and put it in our pu'uvai. That we need to paint another picture. Flip this. And like what everybody else was saying before me, not to just have this aina perspective. And as we said, we're just getting a little loopy here and there. Kainacation. Okay? Aina, kainacation. Okay? I teach 2.5-year-olds, so you know how it is. We all have our specialties. Mine is like that. But with that, again, we truly believe that Kamehameha Schools can do it. Any place that within our policies, it says aina, it can say kaitu. It is that relationship that we have as a whole that guides what we do. And I know Kamehameha Schools, aloha, ma'alama, kuleana. We need to aloha, the kai. We need to ma'alama, the kai. That is our kuleana for the muae. For our muae, for that muae, for that pepe and the kona. That is our muae. Eia mai, ke kai mai. And again, we just want to mahalo you for coming today and for just watching us from afar. I'm going to pass the mic over to Auntie Keopu just for a couple minutes if you have any questions or comments. Thank you. Can we give a big round of applause?